Welcome, guys, and for you that the first time you're seeing us at Elite Baseball TV and you're coming from the Youth Baseball Talk podcast, welcome for your first of our blog posts that we do on a weekly basis here in Elite Baseball TV. Piggybacking off of last week's segment of how I gained the trust of our hitters in the fall and kind of the way I go about my yearly working with hitters, and I kind of use the fall as our starting point. The next step for our guys, but this is something that comes across to all hitters at some point in their careers, is you have a coach that says, okay, now it's time to make that adjustment. So if I'm a youth player, I'm a dad, or somebody that's just on the track of trying to help players, what is the first step? What are the steps I need to take to successfully make a swing adjustment? Because you hear coaches say all the time, hey, I want you to work on getting shorter this offseason. I want you to work on staying inside the ball this offseason. Those are all great concepts, but there's no street sign that says find your best swing this way. So what are the steps that we need to take in order to achieve that off-season swing adjustment? And I break it down into 4 areas here. First, we have to diagnose the flaw. So a coach is going to say, hey, you need to get inside the ball, you need to stay shorter in your swing. We use those couple examples already. But what does that really mean? So I think video is a great resource, and now that everybody has that on their iPhone, in fact, the newer iPhones even have it at 120 frames per second you can film. So you can really see everything you need to see in a video analysis or a swing segment. Kind of a sidebar there, when I was first doing video analysis with high-speed cameras, I had this huge, bulky box that filmed at 120 frames per second. I had all this equipment that I'd have to take into the stadium with me. Now you have it on your iPhone. So no excuse not to be able to do it. Now granted, the video analysis is only as valuable as the person that's behind it that's diagnosing or doing the actual analysis. So the next step in that, and this goes still into that first stage of diagnosis of the flaw, study. So when you can look at yourself side by side to a big leaguer, or just pulling up clips on YouTube, there's a plethora of ways you can go about seeing what a big league or high pattern, high level swing should look like, and then kind of look at it on your own. I use that in my own example too. I'm taking lessons as well. I do competitive CrossFit, and I'm a novice at it. I'm working on these Olympic lifting techniques with a coach or a trainer, and I'm taking lessons. And I know it's always much more powerful for me when at first I can see myself do it on video, and 2, when I go back and look at pros, professionals, going about their craft. And then I can kind of get that visual in my own mind of what it should look like. That doesn't fix everything, but that gives you a good running start. The second step in this process is what I call to modify. And that's when we're actually going to make the swing adjustment. This is where you're going to spend the majority of your time working on your swing flaw. And this is trial and error. You're going to find different drills to try to help usually what is a sequencing error. So again, we're going back to trying to get the entire body to work in a specific pattern, and that's the basis of our entire sequential hitting plan that hopefully you've seen already on our video site here. So you're working through those segments of drills to try to get the body to remember this particular pattern. And I say it's trial and error because you're going to find drills that you like more than others. You're going to have a coach alongside and said, this looks right for my eye, but it has to feel right for the hitter. And that's the ultimate goal of what we're doing here. We're trying to create a new feel. And the initial stages of that is difficult because at the beginning, you're confusing the body. The body knows what it likes to do. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to do it. So anytime you go into adjusting a pattern, or what we call modifying the swing pattern, you're going to go through a period of confusion. That doesn't last very long, but I point that out because it can be frustrating, especially for the youngest hitters, because it feels better to do it my own way. Unfortunately, my own way may not be the most efficient way. So we're trying to get them to feel this new pattern, get over that feeling of confusion, and that just takes extra reps. So once the hitter finds drills that get him to capture that feeling that they're trying to create in this new pattern, those are the drills we want to make part of their everyday routine. For instance, if I have one swing flaw of maybe an upper body not holding a scap load long enough and not resisting the lower body's want to turn quite enough, I might give that hitter 4 or 5 different drills, knowing that there's going to be 1 or 2 that really stick out and feel good for that hitter. It's not about what drills I like. It's about what makes the hitter feel comfortable in creating this swing modification or new swing pattern. And that's the couple of drills that they'll put into their everyday routine. That becomes maintenance work. So that's what's going to allow them to, okay, I've got this now. And I always tell people, the hard part isn't getting the pattern down. I can get that into a hitter in usually just a session or two. The hard part is maintaining that. And that's what these couple of drills that really stand out and feel good for a hitter will do. Allow them to create that maintenance work on their own and keep them in this new pattern. The third stage of this is to apply the pattern. And we apply this now with a moving ball. So when all the things that we were doing generally in our swing modification are going to be off of a tee, non-moving pitch, I'm just working on the body. When we're applying it, we're going to put a ball in motion. And I always work slow and close before I work far and fast. So when we do our front toss, and I'm doing it from 20 feet away, I'm going to start with change-up toss. Takes the threat of velocity out of the equation, makes the hitter less jumpy because tempo plays such a big part in the body getting into a correct swing pattern. So if I can slow them down and then take the threat of a faster moving pitch out of it and slow the ball down too, they have a better chance of staying in the correct pattern. I'll gradually build that up to greater distance and greater speed, eventually to changing speeds on pitches to make it more game-like. But you do that only if you see that constant degree of success still achieved. So when we're doing tee work, I would say a hitter has what I'm trying to get them to, or the point I'm trying to get across if we're doing 8 out of 10 correct. And I'm not saying 8 out of 10 have to be line drives. I'm saying 8 out of 10 with my eye that we say, or through video, that is getting into the correct pattern. Now that we're doing front toss, 6 or 7 out of 10, 7 out of 10 is usually the number I'm really shooting for. Because again, as we add a moving ball into the equation or you add speed into that ball, then the rate of success is going to drop slightly. Then when we go live eventually in our test, I want to see 6 out of 10 on a consistent basis. So that's what I'm looking for now as we're adding speed and distance to the drill. It allows the hitter to go through this feeling process again in less of a threatening situation than a live ball thrown at them, certainly at game speed. And we gradually build up and apply the modifications we are working on in that second phase off of the tee. And the final stage of this is the test. Test is live batting practice. Test is we're taking mechanical thoughts out of it and seeing how the body reacts. That's going to be the ultimate judge for the player in feel and the coach in seeing if the player has achieved what we worked on off the tee, built up to the soft toss, the front toss, and now we're going to a live. Even in the live, you can add degrees of difficulty as you get further down the road, meaning you add velocity. Some coaches can just do that at a shorter distance to take reaction time out of it. And you can add eventual changes of speed. So the build-up or the progression that you use should start easier and then get progressively harder. You will then, at that time, know through the testing period that if the adjustment or modification was successful. If it wasn't, you have to backtrack. So I only like to go on to those next phases is if the previous phase reached that number that we were looking for. Hey, front toss, I'm doing 7 out of 10 correctly. It's time to make that next step. But if we struggle in that live arm situation, that live test, we either back off velocity in that test, or I'm going to go back to the front toss, get a few more rounds in where the hitter feels good again, has those successful reps before we move on once again. So just jumping into saying, hey, I got to make a swing adjustment and throwing live to this guy and telling him to stay inside the ball, tell him to shorten his swing, isn't going to help the hitter. You have to follow the specific progression that starts slow and close, works further and faster, where we first have to diagnose the error. We're going to go through the modification phase off of the tee, where we're working the drills off the tee to make the swing adjustment, really focusing on the body at that part. Third, we're going to apply it off of a moving pitch, working slow and close before we work far and fast. And finally, the testing phase will tell us exactly if we've accomplished our goal of that correct swing adjustment. We'll see you guys next week. Catch us again on Youth Baseball Talk, our weekly spot whenever the show airs. And of course, we'll be here with you each week in Elite Baseball TV. Thanks.